Seth Michael Ney.
I'm Sean Behrens.
I'm Abram Kaplan.
And I'm Judy Mayer.
And you're listening to
Obscuria Filmcast.
Greetings and welcome to Obscuria Filmcast. I'm your host, Abram Kaplan, and we will be joined momentarily by Seth, Judy, and Sean. Today we will be discussing Mad God from 2022, a stop-motion animation feature created and directed by Phil Tippett. A little bit different today. We're going to read you a couple of reviews on this film. Critics were overwhelmingly pleased with this one, and we'll start with a favorable review from Brian Eggert. Mad God drills a hole into creator Phil Tippett's head and looks inside. A renegade work of stop motion and other animation styles, it plays like Tippett visited Hieronymus Bosch's underworld and returns to tell us about it. The cryptic and symbolic narrative, written and directed by Tippett and following his warped dream logic, unfolds in a series of subterranean worlds, each more horrifying and disjointed than the last. It's a Dantean odyssey devoid of dialogue and inhabited by fleshy, demented creatures who eke out an existence according to the maniacal social structure that keeps their underworlds operating. But by the end, Tippett shows a transcendent cycle of destruction and rebirth that isn't a beautiful cycle of life, but a cruel reality of the universe. Many will come away scratching their heads wondering what they just watched and why it wasn't more aligned with standard stop-motion animation fare. But dark as some Leica Productions, Paranorman, Coraline can be, they're kids' stuff next to this, so children beware. Crafted over 3 decades and funded partly by a Kickstarter campaign, Mad God forgoes portraying a nightmare and instead mainlines the subconscious's unrefined nightmare fuel. And now for a less favorable review, because Brian Eggert gave this one a 4 out of 4. This is from Roger Moore. Strip away the honored credentials of the filmmaker and the tortured backstory of this passion project, something virtually no critics seem willing to do. And what we're left with is an artist's descent into obsession, crawling so far up his ass that nobody but him can see the light. Now, we will give it over to our hosts and see what they think about it. Mad God's available to stream on the Shudder platform, which can be accessed directly or as an extension on Amazon Prime. If you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Leave a like and comment on one of our YouTube streams and share a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all of your support and welcome your engagement on our weekly YouTube live streams. If you would like to suggest a film for future episodes and have the opportunity to participate in our live stream, please email us at obscuriafilmpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And now here is the show. All right. Let's get these guys unmuted.
This was Seth Michael's choice.
Yeah.
And so Seth,
and you guys saw this one together in the theater, didn't you?
In the theater, yeah.
I just have one question, Abram. What do they write for, those two guys?
I don't know. I just found them on Rotten Tomatoes. I picked these are guys I've seen, like they're repeatedly at the top of the critics list.
So they're certified.
But
they're certified critics. They're not
No, these are considered like in the top critics on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of these guys are
they don't write for an actual.
No, they do. They do write for actual periodicals. I just gave their names because I wanted to attribute it to them, not to like the website. Necessarily the website. Like I think Brian Eggert, I forget exactly. I'm sorry, Brian Eggert and Roger Moore. But I think some of them are independent.
They don't write
and
for
some
any
of them
periodical like Chicago Sun or New York Times or any.
These guys don't. But overwhelmingly, there are very few bad reviews for this film, and this is something I've been meaning to do for a while, just because I think it's kind of funny. to see like you got two guys that kind of characterize the film the same way, like they describe it pretty accurately, and one says it's like amazing and the other thinks it's a piece of crap. And I think that's just kind of one of the, it's just super funny. But this film got overwhelmingly high marks on every level. And, you know, this was a film that took him, was many years in the making, right?
Yeah, he started this project after Return of the Jedi, which he
1983.
When he won the Academy Award for Best Special Effects for that. And then he started looking for other work. And he had found out what it was like to kind of be in a situation, to be one voice in a team of kind of like arguing for their points. And this is even before Lucasfilm became, you know, if you were not a yes man, you couldn't work there, to George Lucas. So he started this, and he finished it, was it 3 decades later or 4 decades later?
Three
and a half. What I read was that he started work on it in 87. So, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, we're talking almost 40 years at this point.
Yeah.
But basically, we should go into who Phil Tippett is as well. But basically, there's a split in guys who do special effects between guys who are artists and guys who are technicians. And Phil Tippett makes no bones about the fact that, like, he's an artist. He went back to this project after they went to CGI on Jurassic Park. He originally was going to do Jurassic Park's, all of their special effects. And what happened was Stan Winston and his team, his CGI team, started showing a walking skeleton of the T-Rex. And Spielberg was like, yeah, we're going to do that. And then they found out that all the CGI guys couldn't make anything move like an animal. So they actually went back and hooked up everything to a stop motion puppet that goes into this computer and adjusts the CGI. So it's kind of still doing his stuff, but now the computer picks it up and draws.
Oh, right.
That was the adjustment. But it was kind of the end of what he primarily is, which is off the tradition of stop motion, whether you want to call it stop motion, dynamotion, which is what Ray Harryhausen called it, or go motion, which is what they called it once they got to Empire Strikes Back, where he did the 3 walkers were all animated at the same time, stop motion by stop motion, which is a process that takes, you know, hours to get seconds of film.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what inspired you to pick this film?
The name of our series is Obscuria Films, and this defines what we're about.
I have to agree with that. But what in particular about this film attracted you?
Well, I don't know. I think that a film that starts with an image of the Tower of Babel going down into blackness from red, and then basically gives you a scroll that's from the book of Leviticus.
Yeah, and one of the harshest Torah portions in Leviticus, so much so that oftentimes when this Torah portion is recited on Shabbat, like that particular section of the portion, they won't even do an aliyah. Like, so like normally you get an honorary, like, called up to the Torah to bless the Torah for the reading of that section of the portion. And a lot of congregations won't even call people up it actually might be a different portion than this one, but it's in a similar spirit to this. I mean, it's just talking about all the horrible things that'll happen to you if you, in your society, if you do not obey, really mainly like the prohibition against idolatry and perversion. So it's kind of, that really struck me hard that was the introduction to the film. And I was like, okay, what am I in for here? And it was about as bleak story as you could imagine.
If you can say there's a story, because
If you could even say there's a story.
his
Yeah.
wife says it's a non-narrative narrative.
I think it's a pretty. I think it's. I think there's a story there. Personally.
No, there's a story,
but there's no diet. Like it's just it's sort of a silent film in a lot of ways.
And his process for writing it was every day he would write a scene, but before he went to sleep, he would write things that interested him to inspire him through the night. So he woke up with ideas to write the next scene. So that's a pretty involved unconscious process. I've heard of automatic writing.
I can't think of a more totalizing story than this one. I mean, it starts with a completely fallen world and this impulse to destroy that world so that it can be reborn anew. And then it sort of climaxes with the final destruction and regeneration of the universe with this sacrificial creature, baby creature. And that renews and regenerates the universe. And then there's sort of a coda, which is basically shows you the rebirth of the world again and how it's going to just do the same thing that it did before. And it shows civilization being born and yada, yada, yada. And then inevitably the whole thing crumbling.
I have a question about that, but I'll let everyone else talk first. I also picked this because it's obscure, but also Phil Tippett, for most cinephiles, goes through their entire life. From like the moment that Star Wars made money, and then they made the Making of Star Wars documentary for TV, and you started finding out about these things called special effects. And I went to a stop motion class on Saturdays for children. Like, it was a big deal because you could do it. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly stop motion animation has been a huge inspiration and a big part of my childhood. So much so that, like, okay, so what did I grow up on? I grew up on Gumby, reruns of Gumby, which is amazing and super freaking weird. If you want to talk about obscure, it doesn't get any weirder than Gumby.
Yeah.
And
just speaking of stop motion and obscure, Davy and Goliath. Remember that?
What about David and Goliath?
It was like a Mormon or Christian stop motion thing. That they would play.
Okay. That's really kind of funny that you mentioned that, because what I was going to say next, and I'm wondering if you're splicing memories of things that you remember and also things that I told you, because when I was a kid, my father got into stop motion animation and claymation, and we made a stop motion animation film of David and Goliath.
No, this was about a kid, and his name was David, and his dog Goliath would say, "But Davy, why can't we steal from a 5 and dime?"
That show went from 1960 to 2004.
Are you talking about the same show? A Mormon?
Yeah, Davy and Goliath.
Okay, was it a claymation, or was it like figurines?
I think it was
both.
I think it was both.
Yeah,
because the dog and the kid were dolls, but
So that's just a complete coincidence that me and my dad did a Bible story animation of David and Goliath. We actually it was David, I think, in the one that we did the slingshot and hit David in the head, and then we had hit Goliath in the head, and then we had David slicing off Goliath's head and like blood coming out of it. And I did that with my dad when I was like 8 or 9 years old.
And the first time you and I hung out, we tried to make it animated.
When I got back from California, I was just screwing around. I needed some kind of diversions in my life at that time. I was going under a lot of stress, and I just started messing around with clay again. It just was very therapeutic. And I used the iPhone to do. I had a stop motion animation app in my phone, and I made a bunch of like videos. I love stop motion animation. And like another thing that was a huge inspiration when my dad got this video of the amazing Mr. Bickford, who's a claymation, probably one of the greatest stop motion animators of all time. He doesn't just do claymation. He did
animation.
No, he may have, but what I'm referring to is he did. Imagine stop motion animation drawing, where you're like, you start to draw something, take a picture, continue the line, take a picture. So he was doing line animation, and it was super crazy. But he did this incredible collaboration with Frank Zappa, where he took a lot of Frank Zappa's orchestral music, and they did a bunch of sequences of clay
he has
animation.
Like 30 fingers, right? It's the one where he's
it's super psychedelic. Yeah, that's one of the most popular segments from that thing, and then they compiled it into like a 60-minute like kind of series. But anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I love stop motion animation. I freaking love this movie just because if I loved it like completely and on multiple levels, but just even if you think there's no story or it's whatever, I mean, just like all the critics said, like it's so visually stunning, it's so arresting. The soundtrack is so perfectly mated to the action. The atmosphere of it is so powerful that it's just enjoyable on that level alone, even if you don't think there's like a clear narrative going on, which I kind of think there is. But the more I think about it,
well, it's up for interpretation too, because he just uses symbolism that the viewer can imbue themselves into the work, like a weirdo Rorschach test, even though,
right. Well, I think that's true, but wouldn't you agree that there's certain things that there are certain things about the story that are true, like that are clear, like that the world is destroyed. It culminates in the destruction of the world,
but what
the regeneration of the world, and just showing that we're going to repeat this cycle.
No, but it's the motivation that remains unclear. And who's we? Is it the world or is it me?
Some other world.
Maybe this is a visual representation of how someone feels. Because when I saw it, the beginning, the guy keeps on going down, 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 down. There's a level. He does an adventure, keeps on going down. There's another adventure. So to me,
it's what do you call those things? That's supposed to be like those probes that they send
it's like
people.
A diving bell, basically.
A diving bell. Yeah, it's basically.
But it's like you're going
fossils.
But it's like you're going into human depravity. It's like how depraved.
At first, it goes through natural fossils. You see an ammonite. It's one of the oldest fossils on Earth record. And then he goes past dinosaur fossils, specifically a T-Rex and a Triceratops, which is
really
if
old.
You watch
those are the first dinosaurs.
I don't. The first dinosaurs, they're the ones in Jurassic Park.
I don't know if Phil Tippett. I don't know if Phil Tippett is a religious guy, but my big takeaway is that if you want to understand this movie, you have to read Ecclesiastes, because to me it's sort of a like visual poetic representation of the essence of that book, which is basically like that there's nothing new under the sun, and that don't think that you can build some kind of, don't think that you can actually create or destroy worlds, or that the vain pursuits that you have in your life mean anything, and that this whole like kind of almost cynical thing that like everything in life is vanity on a certain level. All the materialistic aspects of life are vain pursuits. But
you could like alter your perception of it. So maybe the bomb in the end and the ticking down wasn't destroying the world, but regrowing myself into a child, and then since I'm the same person, the same thing happens, represented in the civilization. It's what they call if you have a signifier that links to a significance within the self. So if I have enough signifiers, your brain is going to put them in a certain order, and the Bible quote in the beginning does help, because without that Bible quote, yeah, I guess it's biblical.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Like, it's kind of like the setting, the preface the premise of the whole thing is that passage from Leviticus, and then the whole film is like this visual depiction of Ecclesiastes, which is no less confusing and no less open to interpretation. That is one of the most difficult books that rabbis and priests and scholars have been arguing about. What the hell does this book mean? Because it does seem like bleak. It's like one of the bleakest books in the Bible. But anyway,
well, I think that
do you
sums
think,
up
Judy?
the movie. I know I've been silent because I'm like, I don't know how much I have to say about this, but in thinking about it, I didn't love the film. To be honest, it felt like a very, I kind of felt like, like old guys who like trains and they spend hours working on their little train sets and building.
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching a version of that was like to the 1000th degree.
Absolutely.
But I could feel the passion for it. So it was like I didn't hate it because it has this feeling of like, wow, okay, this is the contradiction of the film. There's so much love put into the film by the filmmaker, right? But there's zero love in the movie, in the story. From the whole thing. It's completely void of any love. It's just sort of like
anger. It's a lot of anger.
I don't even know if it's anger. It's just like man or beast or whatever, because there's no like true man or true. It's all this like mixture of just being like if we were all just like bugs.
Hey, I left.
Yeah, it's
I
bleak.
put some clips in there.
Yeah,
I put some clips in there. If you want to see, like, look at a clip, and maybe we could give our audience either one. They're both like 40 seconds.
Let's see.
So, yeah, there's the main character, kind of, for the first 35 minutes. Also, the sound design was done really well. And that's it for that one.
Okay.
But the sound design was done very well too, which is another thing that gives us that depth of space. Because the thing's really and the camera's like 3 feet away, but if you have an echo, then you really have this immense sort of space. Because it was a giant film. This world was big, and he made it big like that. And also even things like that. So you have a main character, you automatically view that character as yourself. It's non-gendered. It could be a woman in there. And then he's searching, or she's like searching, and then there's danger in the background, which is what I said before, like the signifier to the significance. So we all are in the woods or whatever else, searching. We hear something, we have fear, and we investigate. That simple 1, 2, 3. Anybody can relate to, even a little kid, because they think there's something in the dark. And they're a little scared of that, the unknown, and what that means. That's what I was trying to get to before.
Don't you think there's also something kind of funny about the film? Like there's a lot of little weird, quirky juxtapositions.
Yes, it's like
it took me a while to like. I had to actually rewind a few times. I'm like, did
you miss something?
Did I just no, not even that. But did I just see what I thought I saw? There's one scene where he's like, when he's going back, when they're replaying the movie of his mind, where he's like making it on his trek to the treasure place, wherever he's got to go to find the thing that he needs to find from the map. And he's like going through in his Jeep before he descends into that square spiral thing. And and he passes by like a wall with graffiti on it that says like, Joe, or I forget what the name was, but it was like, Joe is a retard. Not retard, retard. And then he's going. What?
When I write, I always spell it retard.
That's how it's.
I call people tarts.
We always said retard.
If you call somebody,
is that a New Jersey thing? Okay, that's no, I know a tart, but a retard. But I was like, what the hell? Like that's just so random. Like, and it just had like some silly graffiti. And then you go a little further and there's like cave paintings. So it's like you have modern graffiti and like ancient graffiti.
But also
he's like taking a piss like at every moment that he can in this film. It's kind of funny.
But it's also like he paints a world, like even though it's this one guy, he's like hiding out, and he's like always in this danger, and it seems like a lived-in world, which I appreciated. Also, about halfway through the film, he uses real actors, which is
Yeah, I was
pretty
just gonna
hot
mention that.
because you
Is there
see
two?
all this. There's
There's
Two or
actually
more?
3.
yeah, I think there's
Three.
3.
Ronnie Cox, who's the director of Repo Man, as well. He's the guy with the fingernails.
Okay.
Glasses. and the
He's like a
glasses.
He's a British
wizardy
guy,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah,
and he's
I was
always
like, is
done
he supposed to
cult
be
films.
God? I was kind of
Yeah.
confused by that.
is what?
That's the thing. I don't know if
I was like,
anybody's.
is he supposed to be God? Is he the
No,
mad
no,
God?
I think he's like Lucifer, someone who's been put in charge. Like, but I think the baby is higher up in charge of certain levels. But I don't think that guy
Innocent.
is. Yeah, I don't think that guy is definitely not a creator. But
I just
someone
like
who's
how
got
it's-
to a position where he's like the commandant of a camp or something like that. Like he didn't set the camp in motion, but he's definitely going to rule.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like also that's why I thought it was really innovative, because all the stop motion I've seen, they never interspliced
Mm-mm.
human faces for that long at all. Not even for any, maybe in SpongeBob SquarePants in the end, but that's the only, you know what I'm saying? And I thought it was so clever. It's like they could have been doing that whole time, I guess. I thought it was
Yeah.
so clever, and it even expanded the world more, which I thought was really interesting, because it does look like a 9 Inch Nails video. You could play Downward Spiral to this.
You could.
And
If
not
I
with the
had my
beat.
way, we would just be playing on a wall all the time
Right.
in my house.
It's like B footage. Yeah. No, it's
We
cool.
should
I
play
get
it
it.
for
Yeah.
if we have a no Halloween party again, we should play it on the wall instead of Jodorowsky.
Yeah, it's a good background movie.
Also,
for a
stop
hipster
motion
bar.
is a good way for filmmakers to get their start, because it's just one camera and them and time. That's how Tim Burton got his start. And my introduction to stop motion was Harryhausen and Clash of the Titans and the Sinbads, the Voyage of
So
Sinbad.
when you say that Tim Burton got his start with stop motion animation, like what was the first thing that he did?
In 1982, he made a stop motion called Vincent, which was his senior thesis film project. And because of that film, he got an agent. But Tim turned down projects for 3 years.
But he was fired.
And
from
then
the
wait, hold on. He
Just-
turned down projects. Hold on, for 3 years. They turned down projects. Then he got offered Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and he jumped at it because he knew Shelley Duvall, who knew Paul Rubens, and that's how they got connected, and that's how he got his start, as well as others, I'm sure. Like all those Pixar guys, I'm sure started off with stop motion.
So he started off with frame painting for Disney, and then he got fired. And then he made
Who?
Vincent. Tim Burton was fired from
okay.
Fox and Hound for drawing the animals looking like they were dead.
That sounds about right.
Sounds about right. But anyway, Ray Harryhausen comes from the lineage of I can't remember who his mentor is. The guy who did King Kong's animation, which was shown on TV.
The guy who did
Phil
King
Tippett
Kong.
saw it in 1955, the original Kong. So that was like the first big deal stop motion thing was King Kong. It was like 12 inches tall.
A lot of filmmakers, even Peter Jackson, was heavily influenced by that one. I'm trying to look up the stop motion guy for King Kong, but there's a lot of King Kong stuff.
Ray Harryhausen lived across the street from him.
Really?
And when that guy was old, Ray Harryhausen would visit him. But in this documentary called Mad God and Monsters, it's a documentary about Phil Tippett, which is on Amazon. They say he's the heir to Harryhausen. And that's why the name of the restaurant in Monsters, Inc. is Harryhausen's. Because it's
Interesting.
I can't find the guy's name.
Of Doom. Remember the game Doom? the first-person shooter. in the
Yeah, I
game.
never
Yes.
played it, but I remember it.
Doom.
It looks like
yes.
an organic version of Doom, because in Doom they open up a portal and they send your hero, who you control his stuff and his gun, and you try and get healing stuff, to kill everyone in hell so they can't get on this satellite platform and beam down to Earth. I think that's the plot. I never liked
Yeah, well,
Doom.
it's a Mars. It's like hell on Mars.
Yeah, maybe
that's
ancient,
the.
but, it was all, yeah.
It is.
There's
It
all-
is nuts. I mean, and even Nightmare Before Christmas. That was another film that changed the world
It's one of my children's favorites.
because
Really?
it was like all
Yeah.
the imagery.
We watched it a few days ago.
Nice.
It changed the world. Even now, there's stuff for Christmas and Halloween. You see Nightmare Before Christmas stuff for both seasons.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty brilliant, yeah.
Yeah, like
Willis
putting,
Pride
O'Brien.
too.
putting all
Willis
that imagery
O'Brien is the guy.
together.
King
Who?
Kong is Willis O'Brien.
Ah,
The
there you
animator.
go. God bless the Irish.
Mm. No, I was
But-
reading that on this film, Mad God, he utilized a lot of film students because it took so long. Like there was one with the army where they melted those little army dudes to show like a field of dead soldiers, and it took 3 years. And he used film students to set it up and shoot stuff. So that was interesting because you do have to think of a crew. How do you work with a crew over 20 years?
Phil Tippett did
It's
work
pretty wild.
consistently during that whole time as like a graphic
Yeah.
designer for a bunch of films. He did a
Mhm.
bunch of Twilight Zones. It said.
Yeah, he I think though if he hadn't been nominated for the Academy Award for Starship Troopers, I don't think he would have gotten this finished.
Yeah, Starship 96. He did Dragonheart. He did My Favorite Martian. He did stuff for The Haunting, which is a famously horrible movie. He did
We
The
talked about
Spider. The Haunting is bad.
Yeah.
He did the Spiderwick Chronicles,
Mm.
RoboCops 2 and 3,
And one.
and
Design
1. There you go. He did
Nice.
Willow. Wow. He did a bunch of.
Mm.
No, he kept on working.
And originally he comes from commercials, from the stop animation of the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah,
his
all,
biggest
all
gap
Oh,
these,
wow.
7 years.
all the best directors started in not all of them, but like a lot of people that were in commercials that ended up going into film making were
Michael Bay did commercials.
and so did Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott has like more commercials.
David
He
Fincher.
still does do them.
He still does them.
Yeah, or at least he had until
Probably
recently.
very lucrative.
I bet.
The ones
Yeah.
that
That's why a lot of actors do commercials, you know?
Yeah, a lot of TV commercials are more entertaining than television and film these days.
Well,
This
as I
is
said
just
to
so
someone,
nuts. But like, yeah,
the bar is not that high anymore.
it's like
Yeah.
watching this film. Yeah, are you loading up?
No,
I got
that was an accident.
Oh, I got another
yeah,
clip
no.
here that's more visual,
Okay.
and just like because it is. I see it as you're going down into human depravity, all
Mhm.
the bad parts about yourself, because you're going down. So there might be a level above that might be cool and nice, but this one guy is going down in there as some sort of weirdo therapy.
This one.
Yes.
I love this part. This might be my favorite part.
Oh,
He has great camera movement here too,
Salamander.
and then just like a random character there too.
And those reminded me of like the SARS carrying animals, that, and then the masturbating.
Like, look at
mannequins.
Yeah.
she's just trying to feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait,
This
is
was
the best
relatively
part.
early in
This
the
is the best
film.
part.
Yeah.
Closes the door. Closes the door.
Oh my god, that's so
All
good.
that stuff.
But
you
you
know,
go
your
from you go from
prisoners,
something that's
experimentation.
Yeah.
That's not his
Just in that
mission.
sequence, you go from something that's like a human being, like a monkey or an ape, right? And then you go to the salamander, which is like the first thing to come out of the water and breathe air. And then you go to those two things that are fighting each other, undetermined. And then the thing that's behaving the most human is clearly some dirty, discarded doll or mannequin, but she's doing a very human thing, which is masturbating and then trying to seduce you.
I think she represents beauty and what we do with beauty. You know?
Well, it's interesting if you look at it closer, she sort of covers herself. Like, did you see her arm? She's covering a breast.
I thought she
Like
was
in shame.
presenting her breast.
Offering it, like,
I thought she was like, let's have sex.
I don't know.
like-
I think of always as covering is a way of protecting or,
Yeah.
you know, especially
sure.
if you think of if you're naked, right? Most women, we would do this. Men, it would be down
Yeah.
Right.
the bottom.
Yeah,
But it's more of a physical self-protection. I don't know if
Protecting
that's
the
what the
vulnerable
filmmaker
parts of your
wanted, but
body.
yeah, but I think if she was, her arm would go more outward if she was
she
trying
kind
to
of like
seduce.
presenting it almost, rather than.
That's what I thought. But I guess we're
Those
guys and
this
Judy's a woman,
and
so
that. I don't know.
but that's what I mean.
Yeah, it could
It
be up
makes
to
it more
interpretation.
rich because
Yeah.
the less you say, it makes it more rich. But you got to have these signifiers
Mhm.
because, like, what does
It
he
looked
mean?
more
by
like
those?
to me that she was masturbating, and then the camera caught her, and then she felt ashamed and violated.
But even then, he closes the door. All of it. It's not his mission. He's going, but it's just still like another scene.
Does
It's like,
he
yeah,
close
Phil
the door, or
Tippett
does
could
the
be
door close itself?
I think the door closes
Right.
on its own. I don't think you see him close the door.
All right. Well, I thought he closed it. See, it was so we could just interpret it, and that's what's kind of cool about it. It's one of those films where you could watch it at different areas of your life. Like you could see this every 5 years, 10 years, and get something different out of it because you're different.
What was up with the hideous garden gnome guy with the bubbly face who's catches the slaves beating each other with the shovels, and then he like electroshocks them so they start shoveling shit again.
Yo.
And then he goes
don't
off
know.
to his little weird, trippy, psychedelic garden, and he starts feeding the little
His
cute,
pets.
like Teletubbies. He
I
starts
don't know.
feeding the cute little Teletubbies maggots, and then he unleashes the little crab monster, and the crab monster goes and eats the Teletubby guys. So it's like the cycle of life, and he's just getting a kick out of it. He's like, I feed the worms to these guys, and then I feed those guys to this guy, and
My favorite part
pretty
is,
sadistic stuff.
and remember the surgery room, and one character opens the body and he takes stuff out. He just keeps on taking stuff out.
There's
Then
like
you close
jewelry and a
up.
Bible,
It's like a live
and,
thing, and then it's a close up, more stuff. I was looking at my watch the whole time. That was like 10 minutes of him just taking stuff out, look
Yeah.
at it.
Well, that was with
more
I think
stuff
2
comes
live
out.
actors, right? There was the nurse and the
Part of
doctor.
that. Yes.
You know
it
what they
was-
should do? They should take the Labyrinth and like splice it with this film and make it like into like a demented mashup.
Well, that's the thing
Where it's
about
like you
how
think you're watching the Labyrinth and it's kind of cute and it's a little creepy and a little scary, but it's like fun still a little
there's some
bit. And then all of a
structure,
sudden it turns
yeah.
into this shit.
there's some structure teachers out there who are like, really, it's all the same story, you know. Planet of the Apes and Wizard of Oz is the same story. They go to sleep, they wake up, and one sees monkeys and the other one sees midgets. And in this case, it's like you really only the fact that there's music and it's made by Henson.
and different colors and stuff.
Is different colors is the benevolent journey into hell, into the darkness, is Labyrinth.
Yeah.
The sort of nihilistic journey into hell.
Yes.
I wouldn't even call this
That's a
negative.
good one.
Because like in negative, at least it's clear that somebody is positive. Here it's just like the jungle. Like if someone
There's
was
no
yeah.
there's no motive per se. It's just like there's no vengeance sequence. It's not someone, it's sort of
But-
like I look at it as it just is like this is what the world is.
But that's the point, I think, because
Yeah.
it's like, have you ever watched a nature program that's like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of like that.
It's
like
exactly
watching
the same,
animals
yeah.
and,
Very
and I think
organic.
that's the point, is
Yep.
to say there are no humans anymore. You
Yeah.
guys, it's just animals again, and
Yeah. No,
there's
I got
no
that in the
reason for
beginning.
anything. Yeah.
There's a scene in the beginning where I don't know how far it is into the film, but there's this like sort of half human thing that doesn't have legs crawling, and it gets caught, right? and then someone I don't know if the guy sees, but there's a moment where you're like, oh, is he gonna rescue him or something? Like I was looking for like some sort of narrative rescue moment that you typically would see in a movie, but it's like, no, he just like cut it in half and the guy
that's
kept walking.
the big toothy guy, the big fat toothy guy with the
Yes.
the necklace.
Yes.
Yeah. And then
So that was for me, that was a big signifier of like, oh, that's what this movie is.
and that's right at the beginning, like, hey, if you think that like there's any good, yeah. And what I thought was interesting this time is that the guy crawling on the ground has no back end. He just sort of like ends like the guy in Freaks who crawls through the dirt.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. You look just like the guy from Freaks.
He looks like Claude Rains in The Invisible Man. And I wondered if it was like, no matter how much of a victim you are in this world, no matter how invisible you think you are, someone will find you and chop you into little pieces. Like there's always a bigger monster.
And now that I'm thinking about it, the shape of him was similar to the baby thing that didn't have legs that they also crushed up and used the goo or the liquid for something. I don't even know. I'm not gonna pretend
I did a little research. I don't know. Different people have different opinions on that. They took this little baby like thing and they squeezed it into some kind of oozy goo, which you saw, and then they forged it into gold. And so somehow they melted it into like this molten gold. And then they took the gold and they cast it and hardened it. And then they took that and they turned it into like gold dust, and that's the magic. It was the sacrifice of it's almost like the ultimate, like the worst thing that you're not supposed to do, which is like human sacrifice. They like sacrificed the innocent baby, and then they turned him into this magic fairy dust, and that's what created the destruction and thus the regeneration of the universe.
That's our movie.
Nobody else got that?
Oh, I did too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they did that. I was like, oh, we're doing baby sacrifice. Okay.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. I was like, oh, is this baby like a king? Because the baby, I'm going to call it a baby. The baby came out after the jewelry and the Bible and all the other stuff. And then all of a sudden, somehow magically, there's a baby in there. And then the nurse, I just thought it was a really interesting choice that the nurse was real and she's walking with it. And you have these moments of, does she care for the baby? Is she like, what is this? Because it's a female, female take, like right away, she scoops him up and takes him out. And so you're like, oh, is she going to like be maternal and like love this child? And it's like, no, she just goes and presents it. And then they don't end with her there. She goes back and you see her go lay down in her thing. And she's just like, oh, it's like another day.
Yeah, that's her job, is like pulling out what's left of people's souls. I thought like the baby represents.
Yeah.
But there seems to be something special about this one. Like this is not just one run of the mill baby. By the way, this baby, for anybody who's curious, it looks like it basically looks like
it looks like a creature from the movie Tremors.
Yeah.
Somebody described it as the thing from Eraserhead.
Eraserhead had more of a face.
Okay. Well, it looks like looks like a thoracic spine with a little tiny like node at the top of it. What?
Crossed with like a maggot.
Yeah.
Thoracic spine crossed with a maggot.
It's just like what, like at the same time, it's kind of, this movie's kind of frustrating because it's, what the fuck are you trying to tell me?
Trying to say
there's no hope.
Is this therapy? Phil, what's his name?
Yeah,
Phil?
he is.
It's
tells you what it is. He tells you in the documentary about it.
I was high when I saw it too. I was high.
That's
and
the way
Seth
to see it.
Wait, let me just tell the story. I was a little late, and Seth wasn't on the thing. It was at the IFC Center, and I was right on time, which is late from going to see a movie. Anyway, so I'm like, he's not there. I go on the phone. He comes out. He's like, I'm here, and I'm like, oh, sorry, buddy. He was Seth Michael serious. He took this shit seriously. And we went in, and I was looking at my watch.
That guy has been trying to make this thing for 40 years.
Yeah, no, Seth took it, and I could respect that. But it was in this small room in the IFC, and it was kind of packed. So I guess there was
The
like what,
theater in
25
Greenwich
people?
Village.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's playing
it
still.
was in
Doesn't
it
make
was in
you
the
can
small
see it
room.
on a big
That would be
screen.
really.
But I think it's better to see it on a small screen where you can stop and go back. Because
Yeah,
there's
that's a good
details
point.
that I didn't see. Like RoboCop is in there if you look carefully amongst
Sure.
the Guardians after the dinosaurs. There's a lot of Tippett does what they did to Tippett, and I think there's a lot of statements on like Hollywood and in there and having to like give
And
up
also,
your ideas and dreams
listen,
for money.
I mean, clearly there's a lot of rage in this film. Nobody can make a movie like this without some. I don't know. On some level, nobody can make great art without a nice dose of rage inside of them. But this is like a big, like, it's almost like a pent up, like just all this pent up frustration and energy from all the years of whatever he went through in Hollywood. I don't know, but I don't know. It feels like this was incredibly important
Yeah.
to him to make this film
Did you
exactly
notice
this way.
the 2001 device makes its appearance? The obelisk is in
The
there.
monolith.
The monolith.
Wait, you mean the thing from the beginning with the chimpanzees?
Yeah.
No, I
when the
didn't catch
universe-
that.
When the universe starts
No.
recreating itself, you can see it.
Oh.
It's there, just like it's at every great event in time in 2001, and it appears. Well, it's like almost like this is like they did it again. They recreated the universe, and we're gonna watch it. You know where it's gonna go again? Straight to hell. Because only God can make an organic universe, and that's done as soon as the tower fell. Everything else has just been a recreation of the assassin.
Oh my god, this movie.
It's one of those things though. I started I watched it and then I went back and I watched the first 20 minutes again because I almost like didn't really remember how it was set up. And then it definitely is a film that bears repeated watches to get the like flavor of it. I don't know.
And it's definitely not a film for everybody either.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's definitely a film enthusiast or an art lover. But I would say I'll use the word normie, like your average movie goer to see, the next Thor or whatever. Is not going to like this movie.
Well, I mean, also, it's like stop motion animation has its dedicated enthusiasts as well. It's a very niche thing, and it's like even crazy. Even in its heyday, it wasn't this like sort of figurine animation. It wasn't the way most cartoons were. Like most people are used to cartoons that were done with like cells and like.
But even using it,
even three-dimensional animation is like not for everybody.
Yeah, I could see, but
it's more than an effect. Like that's the substance of this film is three-dimensional animation, and most people are not used to seeing figures move like that. It just looks weird to a lot of people, but it definitely is. If you're a stop motion animation fan, I can't imagine you not loving it on some level, but it is a geek. It's very much like a geek film.
If you like The Wall, you'll probably like this movie.
There you go.
If you can't understand why your friends who like animation don't like Watership Down and find it disturbing, then you'll probably like this too.
The Wall has more of a story, though. I mean, The Wall, there's a protagonist, there's Nazis, Here,
but it has a lot of weird of it's symbolism and non sequiturs too, though.
But here it's you. It's just you. You're going into yourself, and you have the doll in the cage, and you have the monkeys in the cage, and the mouth thing is hunting you, and so you come. I came out of there, and I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. I guess I was a little high, but it was just like. I just don't always want to explore myself, man. That's why I like rom-coms.
I wish I could just take a cut of that last dialogue from Sean and put it on a record or something. It should be on like a Frank Zappa album. the hippie, like some hippie man. You know, I don't want to just like always get into myself, man. I just want to like chill and watch a rom-com, man. You know, I don't always want to bring myself to the movie, if you know what I mean.
But it does show how cinema is a very powerful tool, and in the right hands, because in the wrong hands it could do disastrous things, and so I'm just saying that.
I feel like that's a perfect segue into my choice for next week.
Ooh,
Judy, we're about there too.
Seth, you can finish
my last thing about it. We live in a world where everything offends everybody, right? Like people are so worried. I'm like, you can't make the Little Mermaid like that. It's going to offend somebody. And they were not thinking, let's make something shocking. Like people went out of their way to and both sides, like one side calls it blacklisting, and the other one calls it canceling, and so the other one calls it censorship. But this, if you're Phil Tippett, if you don't care about making money, if it is therapy for you, and you have the ability to make your film, then just make.
I don't want to go to therapy. He's making me go to therapy.
No, he's not. I invited you.
It's okay. All right, Judy.
It's all about the narrative. It's all about his projection.
Judy, what is your next choice?
Okay, my next choice is a Lars von Trier film called Antichrist from 2009. It's the first of his Depression series, which is, I don't think it's the most popular one, but I'll just read the little blurb. It's a 2009 horror art film written and directed by Lars von Trier, starring Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg. It tells the story of a couple who, after the accidental death of their son, retreat to a cabin in the woods where the man experiences strange visions and the woman manifests increasingly violent sexual behavior and sadomasochism.
Of course. Thank you, Lars.
Yeah. So it is. It also went to the Cannes Film Festival in 2009, and apparently 4 people fainted. But it also won Best Director and Best Actress. So I'm not sure how obscure it is. It's definitely not like a popular film that I think people
obscure.
would see.
Lars is obscure.
Okay. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful film. And really, it's I think Willem Dafoe plays an actual therapist or a psychiatrist. So more deep dive in for you, Sean, next week with a lot of sex thrown in.
Thank you, Judy. I will be uncomfortable and I will tone it down. I promise.
Well, let's take a look at the trailer real quick.
Okay.
It's a nice feeling.
Turn the mic on.
It's a pleasant warmth and happiness. Imagine you're at Eden. Imagine you arrive at Eden through the woods. What frightens you? I think he gives you too much medication.
So Wayne says you won't be back. I heard a sound, the cry of all the things that aren't done.
That's what fear is. The thoughts distort reality. You have the urge to stay in the situation that frightens you.
I can't do this. The ground is burning.
The ground is not burning.
Nature is Satan's scourge.
Do you know what you're saying?
You shouldn't underestimate Eden.
Tell me what you think is supposed to happen in the woods.
Where are you? I shouldn't have come here. Get out!
Of course. Europeans, man. It's all right. It's cool. We're gonna. All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't pick the film because I like loved the film. It's one of those films where you watch it and you're like, what did I just watch?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I like it or I don't like it.
I saw.
Well, if you want to see something even more disturbing than that with Charlotte Gainsbourg in it,
oh yeah,
go see the music video for Lemon Incest, which is a duet with her and her father.
Oh, Better.
Oh.
Going right there now.
Look at Judy.
Well, she's also in his third of the series, Nymphomaniac, part 1 and part
That was
2.
her.
And I believe that they're having real sex in it. I'm not
They
sure if
are.
they're really having sex in this one. It's quite possible.
In Nymphomaniac, they did.
They did.
I mean, the other girl did. I don't think Charlotte did, but there was another girl in that, and she did.
I thought Charlotte did, but I'm not positive.
She might have, but there was two girls, and I know one of them did for sure because Charlotte already had a name. The other girl was her first movie. So anyway, but I only like Dogville. I tried watching Nymphomaniac. I tried watching the one he made with Matt Dillon because I love Matt Dillon. No, because
that's his most accessible movie.
I like
He
Dogville.
also did the Bjork
Dogville,
film. What was it called? The
And
2001.
His horror series, The Kingdom, is amazing.
Of course it is. Of course I know it is. Even Terrence Malick, I get my patience runs kind of thin. Because you could either watch it or you can't. But I'll watch it and I'll be calmed down.
Well,
the Von in Lars von Trier is made up. His birth name was Lars Trier. He added the Von. Like
that was probably
you
clever.
Realize why that is, though, don't you?
Because of Klaus von Bülow.
No, it's because in Europe, in those countries, it means barren, and people pay more attention to you because of the Prussian system, which gets you higher rank in the military and more respect. So,
good for him. No, good for him.
Well, it's not just the Prussian system; it was also the Austro-Hungarian Empire,
and the Dutch bands,
and the Dutch, and he's Danish.
Europeans. European. I'm not peeing. I see European.
Yeah.
Get it?
I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm familiar with Lars von Trier, but I don't think. I think I've tried to see a handful of his films, and I've never been able to sit through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this one, I'm going to force myself.
What's the popular one? It's with is it with Kirsten Dunst. It's the second one.
Melancholia.
Yeah, that was like the most popular one that people were about.
Melancholia.
Melancholia. It was supposedly after he was hospitalized for depression, anxiety, and these films came out of his, I guess, treatment and recovery.
Yeah, I tried to watch Nymphomaniac.
I didn't watch those. I actually made the choice.
Jamie Bell was in Nymphomaniac. I'm sorry, Judy. What?
No, I just made the choice not to watch Nymphomaniac.
There's a guy in there named Jamie Bell who was, of Billy Elliot.
Yeah.
From 2000? No? All right. I think he's a wonderful actor, but all right. So we're going to watch Lars von Trier's The Antichrist.
Yes.
For next week on Obscuria Filmcast. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe, leave a comment, or make a suggestion for a film. We would love that.
Hit that notification bell.
Please do.
So get notified of new upcoming programs. All right, guys.
Tell your family where we are.